You got the stuff?
Yeah, I got this stuff. You got the cash?
Yeah, it's right here.
Well, here you go.
It's Batman!
Where? What? Where?
No, these spoilers. They're Batman spoilers.
Yeah, the Batman spoilers. It's what you wanted, right?
Yeah, but they're for the comics, right?
Of course they're for the comics. What do you think I am, hourly?
Okay, thanks, I appreciate this.
Pleasure doing business with you.
It's Batman!
Oh my god, not this again. No, this time he's serious.
Drawing things for complete strangers, but my parents will probably watch this, so I guess they're not our strangers completely. Bad art.
Yellow, and welcome to Bad Art. For all the people who know what it's all about, you already know what it is. For the new folks who are checking this out, Bad Art is a video series where I draw things and talk things. So today we are going to talk about comics. So the one thing, like, to anyone who listens to this show or watches this show or whatever, I would assume that if you've watched enough, then you should know that I consume a lot of forms of entertainment, whether it's through the television, a game system, or at a movie theater, books. I read books too. It's a lot. I'm way spread out. Comics, I also consume entertainment from comics. I read comics, but it is like at the bottom of the totem pole. It's very hard for me to stay interested in comics. And there used to be a lot more reasons why it was hard for me to do it. Like with death, like I don't understand why they bother killing people. I'm putting like bunny ear quotes on that because no one really dies in comics unless your name is Uncle Ben or Thomas and Martha Wayne. Like my whole thing with the killing off the characters is like, why even waste time killing them if you're just gonna eventually bring them back, And then it's also like, if you can bring them back, like if you can like kill the Punisher and chop him up into bits and still bring him back to where he's running around again, killing people left and right in his regular body, it's like, then why not bring back people like Uncle Ben or Bruce Wayne's parents and stuff. So that I can't wrap my head around that, but I've gotten over it. I used to also get caught up on like the big events because they'll have like events in comics and you figure that they would just have a book especially dedicated to that event, but like they end up having to span across other like characters comics, which is a way of them to kind of like make you check out different characters that you normally wouldn't check out. Kind of clever, but still it's a little nerve-wracking to keep track of. But I recently learned that there's actually a list in the back of the comics that can help you with that kind of stuff. So I'm over that. But the main two reasons of why I can't stick with comics is because I'm a continuity whore. I like to read the build up to events. I like to be there when stuff happens. So like when they make references back to like older stories in the comic books, I can be like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was good times, Like I can't do like a lot of people do where they just can, it'll be like years since they read a Spider-Man comic, but then somebody will be like, oh, you should read Spider-Verse. It's this story arc in Spider-Man where it's just all the different Spider-Man that have came out in the past, and all these different timelines come together in one timeline and they fight crime or fight evil or whatever like that, right? And like somebody, usually like people can just pick that up and just start reading it without like reading all the stuff that led up to that event. And it's like, it's really hard for me to do that. It's kind of like how I listen to CDs. Like I know people, I know like most people will buy a CD and they'll put it in, start listening to it, and they'll just skip through tracks looking for like a good song. Like they'll just listen to each track like for a couple seconds, and if it doesn't catch them, they move on to the next one. I can't do that. Like when I buy a CD, I gotta listen to the whole thing from track one all the way to the last one, you know, and then after I'm done with that, then I can start like skipping past some tracks that I don't think are all that great or whatever. You know, it's just, I don't know why I do that. It's just something that I do. It's a habit. And it stretches over into comics with that as well. But I'm slowly just trying to realize that there's just way too much backstory to get into. There's way too much there's way too much history. So I don't have the time to go back and start from day one leading up to today because I'll be just reading comics for the rest of my life and I don't have that kind of time, unfortunately. And the other reason is I don't have the money to do that because comics are expensive. Like eventually all those expenses build up when you're buying the comics. But I'm slowly trying to get over that tick. I still have like little spikes of stress when I'm just reading comics and stuff, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you know, remember that time when this happened?" I'll be like, "Damn it, I didn't read that." Oh, you know, like one of the examples is with Spider-Man. Like back in Civil War, the big thing in Civil War was that Spider-Man had finally revealed his identity to the world. So like I read the Civil War story arc. I read some story arcs after that, like Secret Invasion and Siege and everything like that. And then like I just kind of fell off and didn't read any more comics for a bit. I took a break. And when I eventually came back and started reading this Spider Island story arc, I was like, as I was getting ready to go into it, I was like, I wonder how the world has responded to, or how the world is treating, you know, Peter Parker now that they know he's Spider-Man, right? So I'm like reading Spider Island and there's like a part in there where somebody's like trying to figure out his identity. And they're like, oh, I think you could be this or I think you could be that. And in his head, he's like, I hope she doesn't figure out that I'm Peter Parker because otherwise that spell that Doctor Strange put on me is going to make everybody go back to knowing who I am again. I was like, what? When the hell did this happen? You know? So like stuff like that just kind of like it irks me. But like I said, I'm trying to get over it. But that's also why I'm trying to wait for the Marvel reboot because apparently they're going to be rebooting the entire Marvel universe. I think it starts next year. It's either next year or a couple months from now. I can't remember. Maybe it's next year. But I look forward to that. But I'll get into that a little bit later. But that's how I got into DC comics because I read a lot of Marvel comics, but I had gotten into DC when they did the New 52 because the whole thing with New 52 was they were just like, we're starting over, like, you know, all the stuff that happened, like it still happened, but something happened in the comics to where there was like some kind of catastrophic incident and things just like got kind of rebooted. Like I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like when they restarted Batman, they didn't go right back to him like witnessing his parents dying. Like they just started it over from number one, but like all the established characters were still there. Like Dick Grayson was there, Damian's there, Jason's there doing his Red Hood thing and stuff like that. So like but like the characters in the comic, I guess, didn't have any recollection to what happened from those past events leading up to where they are now. So stuff like that. But either way, it was the fact that when I looked at a Batman comic and it said number one, it made me pick it up and start reading it. And I had started reading Batman comics again. And that was how like that got me to DC. So I'm hoping that Marvel does that with their reboot for me. But the other problem with the comics that I have, this other problem that makes it hard for me to like stick with them, is the release dates. You know, normally stuff like has fixed releases. Like you know that every Friday a new movie comes out in theaters. You know, sometimes Wednesday if it's summer. You know, if it's the summer season. But most of the time, every Friday, a new movie comes out in theaters. Every Tuesday, a new movie comes out on video, or a new game comes out, or a new CD comes out on Tuesday. You know what I mean? And in comics, I guess every Wednesday, like Wednesday is supposedly new comic book day. So that's when new comics come out. And even back when I was reading comics on the reg, it was like I just assumed that every week there was a new comic that would come out. So once I found out that Wednesday was a day for new comics, I was like, okay, like this should be easy. Just every Wednesday, I'll check and see like if the new Batman came out, and I'll buy it and I'll read it, right? But then like there's certain like comics where it takes more than a week, you know, like they'll be on like a every other week schedule, or there's some comics that are like once a month scheduling, you know. And it's just like, and I have no idea when this happens, like, and that's the other thing with comics too, is like to be in the comics, you really have to be ingrained. It's like it's more of a lifestyle than a hobby, just because it's not like a news article that'll come out and say, here's a new comics that came out today, like they do with movies and stuff. It's like you got to go and follow people on Twitter who like actually write the comic and do the art for the comic and stuff and produce it, and like listen for them to be like, oh, you know, like new Batman's coming out 2 weeks from now, so be ready for that. You know what I mean? And that throws me off too, because like right now they have this story arc in Batman where Bruce Wayne isn't Batman anymore. Now it's Jim Gordon, and he has like a mech suit that he runs around in. And that captured my attention because I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I want to see, like, how that's going to work out, you know, with Jim Gordon being Batman, right? And so, like, I buy the comic, I read it. You know, they kind of, like, do a little bit of teasing like they always do, where they just kind of give you just a little bit of information, like, just enough to make you want to get the next issue. And so they do that. And I'm like, okay, next week, like, I can't wait to see what happens next week. Next week comes, there's no new Batman. You know, another week goes, there's no new Batman. And finally, like 3 weeks after I got the first issue, the comic finally comes out, you know, and I read that. And then I got to wait like another unknown amount of time, you know. And it's like, I understand that it takes a lot of time and effort to get these things made, but it would help to kind of like find some way to let people know when the releases are for these things, you know, instead of just like assuming that I'm gonna check my Comixology app every day to be like, oh, you know, did a new Batman come out? Did a new Batman come out? You know what I mean? Like, you figure with the technology that we have that they will be able to just like have something where it's like, if you're looking for this, this is the supposed date where it should come out, you know. So like look around this time, because otherwise what happens is I'll be like into a comic or into its storyline, and I'm buying the comics to keep up with it. But eventually, like when you're sitting around waiting forever for it to come out and you don't know necessarily when it comes out, you just lose interest. And next thing you know, when like somebody just pops up one day and like, oh, did you see what happened in the new Batman comic? And you're like, oh shit, I was reading Batman, you know? And when you left off, you were like on issue 4, but when you like try and go back to see what's happening, they're already on like issue 24, because you just realized that like a half a year went past since you have read the Batman comics, and now you gotta play catch up. And playing catch up is dangerous, especially with digital comics. Comics is the only thing or the only good that I purchase where it's digital. Everything else I purchase is physical. Like I still buy DVDs or Blu-rays, whatever the hell you want to call them. I still buy CDs, you know, I still buy books, like actual like novels and stuff. But like comics are the one thing where it's like, I have no problem just like downloading this app and downloading the comic and reading it and deleting it and going on to the next one, right? But that shit gets dangerous because I'll just be reading and they'll leave on a cliffhanger and I'll be like, oh man, I can't wait to see what happens next. And then like at the end, they'll be like, oh, you know, you can find out what happens next if you purchase this for like $3. I was like, $3? I got $3. You do that shit like 10 times in a row, you know, without even noticing it. Next thing you know, you check your damn bank account, you're just like, where the hell did my money go? Like, why am I like $100 short in my bank account right now? You're like, and then you look up the history and it's just like Comixology. I was like, oh shit, God, you know, you just get disgusted with yourself. So like playing catch up with comics digitally is very dangerous. But I don't know, man. I'm sticking with it. I mean, like I said, I'm reading Batman, trying to stick with that, and that within itself is a little bit of a challenge because they're kind of like dragging the story along. Like the first, like, what is it? I think it was like 2 or 3 issues. They were just kind of like I get what they're trying to do now, where like the first couple issues they've just been kind of explaining how Jim Gordon stepped in to be the new Batman, and then they're explaining what happened to Bruce Wayne, and then like they introduced like some villain. I don't know if he's new or not. I never heard of him. His name's Mr. Bloom, but like I think it was like the second issue. I think it was the second or third. I think it was second or third issue. They had him like on the cover, like this villain, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like they got a new villain, huh? So I'm like reading it, and it's just pretty much the whole comic is just about like explaining what happened to Bruce Wayne. And the like last 2 or 3 pages, they finally get to the guy who they have on the freaking cover, and it ends, and it's like, oh, tune in next time to figure out who Mr. Bloom is. I'm like, all right. So you wait like 3 weeks. And then the next comic comes out, and the next comic is like some weird backstory to where they then tell some kind of story that involved Bruce Wayne. And once again, at the very end, they introduce Mr. Bloom. So I guess it all ties back together to that villain. So it's like they're just slowly building out the story for it, but it's like really just dragging. And like I said, when you mix in the release date of waiting like every 3 weeks to maybe a month for the new comic, you just start to lose interest, man. It's like, I don't want to lose interest to the point where I completely forget about the comic. And next thing you know, it's like, I'm like totally behind. I got to play catch up again. It's like, I hate doing that. I want to like at least keep up to what the hell is going on, you know? So that's the struggle that I live with right now. And that's pretty much why I stick to, like more fixed stories. So like something like The Walking Dead, you know, stuff like that. I've been reading a lot of like comics based off like the TVs are based off of the TV shows. Like I started reading iZombie. There's this other comic I read called Prez, which is about some little teenage girl who becomes the president of the United States. So that kind of captured my interest. But that's also something where they like literally came out and were just like, this is a comic that's going to be like so many issues, like 13 issues or something, I think they said. And I was like, okay, like I can work with that. Like I know that I can either just like read this as they come out, or I can just wait till all 13 are published and then read them straight through, you know? So like I like that kind of stuff. That way I don't have to feel rushed. I can read at my own pace, you know? Even though like you shouldn't feel rushed, because it's not like, unless you're listening to like a comics podcast, you don't really have to worry about things getting spoiled for you in the comic world, which I think is like one of the really good pluses of comics, is just that you have to really go out of your way to get something spoiled for you. It's not like in everyday topics that people like will conversate about, you know, so that's cool. So anyway, that's my whole comic thing, you know. Hopefully it didn't sound too negative. I'm just trying to say, like, explain like how it's a little tricky to kind of stick with that form of entertainment, you know, that kind of shtick, you know. It's hard for me to like kind of get into. So I admire people who like are really into that lifestyle of just like reading comics, like keeping up to date with them, like they read comics the way I watch TV shows or movies, you know, like they just stay up to date with it. So anyway, let's get to the art. So I drew SpiderGwen and Silk. Right now, these are the only 2 characters in Marvel that I read. For all you who should know that I'm a really, really big Spider-Man fan, but like I said, it's just, there's some stuff going on in Spider-Man right now that I'm just kind of scared to just jump into without having any kind of context of what's going on. So, but like Spider-Gwen and Silk are like new characters that they had just started. I think they started them this year. It's either this year or last year. I'm pretty sure it was this year. But like, it was one of those comics where it was number 1. It was like a number 1 on it, and I was like, okay, cool, let's start from here, you know? I read Spider-Gwen mainly just because I like the art and I like her character design. Like, I love her character design. I have a thing about hoods. I think it's a Milwaukee thing, but I like the way she's designed. I've never really been a big fan, or not to say that I've never been a fan. I've never really cared for Gwen Stacy. Like, when I got into reading Spider-Man, he was already with Mary Jane. They always just mention Gwen Stacy as being this girl that ended up dying on his watch or whatever, and that kind of like really made him get into his whole superhero thing, like take it a lot more seriously, even after like Uncle Ben had passed away. So but it wasn't until like I watched the cartoon Spectacular Spider-Man, where in that cartoon Gwen Stacy's alive. Like he's still Spider-Man, and they're in high school and stuff, and Gwen Stacy's alive, so she's a prominent character in that show. And like I really became a fan of her from that show. So then when they created Spider-Gwen, which is like this alternate she's like Spider-Man in an alternate reality where instead of Peter getting bit by the spider, she gets bit by the spider, and instead of her dying, Peter dies, you know, and then she goes and like does what Spider-Man does, but you know, she's Spider-Woman. So like I thought that was interesting with her story, but I mainly just like her character design. And as I read the comic, I'm getting more like into her character as well. So right now they're not really doing much with her comic. I guess they have it on hiatus because they're going to like reboot it again after like the whole Battle World and Secret War stuff is over with. So I think they said that starts like next year. So once that starts, I do plan on like keeping up to date with her comic. Silk is another character that they had came up with who I like, and she's actually in the Spider-Man timeline, if memory serves me correct, where she's a person where after Peter got bit by the spider ended up like crawling off and going up to her and biting her as well. So like she ended up getting her powers at the same time as Peter got his powers. But there's something weird with her character where she got locked in a bunker or something. And that's why I like her character, where it's like with Spider-Gwen, it's more of like how her character design is. And with Silk, it's more of like her story and trying to figure out what the hell happened there. Like how they're going to like try and squeeze her into Peter Parker's timeline and stuff, and explain her disappearance through all the years of Spider-Man adventures, you know. Even though I like her design as well, too. But yeah, like that's another one where they stopped doing it, and they're gonna like resume her comic or reboot it or whatever after the whole like big Marvel reboot. So I'm looking forward to that. I like the picture. I like the way it turned out. This is one of the few pictures where it came out pretty much exactly how I pictured it in my head. I was very happy with the spider web I did in the background where I was trying to make it look like a heart. So I'm happy the way all this came together. I did this for a contest. It's on this website called We Love Fine, where not every now and then, but they always have like these t-shirt design contests. And they had one that was about Spider-Verse, and I was like, perfect. Like I can draw Spider-Gwen, and I decided to put Silk in there as well, and put like a little web heart behind them, so like to kind of make it a shirt for girls to wear. Even though like I'd wear the shirt, I'd wear it, you know, if I saw it in the store. So yeah. But anyway, so yeah, if you go to welovefine.com and if you want to go and give that picture a good rating, like I really appreciate it. I'll when I get the link for it, because I don't think the link's been posted for me yet. I gotta wait for them to approve it. But when I get the link, I'll put it in the description below. So if you want to help your boy out, you know what I'm saying, just go ahead and, you know, help a brother out a little bit, you know. But anyway, that's about it for me. You guys know where to find me on the social media stuff. You know, Twitter at the Chewels, Instagram at ChewVision, and you can email me some stuff if you want. Tell me if my drawings are cool or if they suck and I should just give up on art altogether. You know, whatever. That's Chewels numbers 85 at gmail.com. You know, if you want to do that. And yeah, so you all take it easy, be safe out there. That was bad, but it could have been worse. And I'm out.